In 2003, the village of Dalkeith was rocked when the mutilated body of 14-year-old schoolgirl Jodi Jones was found in this enclosed woodland. Immediately, suspicion was placed on their then teenage boyfriend, Luke Mitchell, who was subsequently convicted of the crime and sentenced to life imprisonment. However, many people believe that Luke was wrongly convicted of the crime and refer to this case as Scotland's first trial by media. Recently, I done a podcast with lawyer and author Scott Forbes, who claims Luke Mitchell was fitted up for the crime by police and claims he has evidence which can exonerate him. Scott also claims that he has proof that may reveal the identity of the real killer. Today I am in Dalkeith, joined by Scott Forbes, and will attempt to reveal the identity of who killed Jodi Jones. I'm Hawaii 5-0, and this is A Long Walk to Justice. Our story begins here in New Battle Abbey Terrace, a small enclosed neighbourhood where Luke Mitchell lived with his mother Karine and brother Shane prior to the murder. During the trial, the prosecution laid out a timeline of events in which they claimed Luke Mitchell had a window of opportunity to commit the murder and dispose of forensic evidence. However, Scott believes that the Crown's version of events was simply not possible.
So Luke Mitchell has to enter here, New Battle Abbey Crescent, to get to his house, probably 150 metres that way. Now look at the houses, we'll count them as we walk. Right. And how many houses with big windows does Luke Mitchell have to pass without being seen? Now he's allegedly just killed his girlfriend, police time 5:15, so he's got 45 minutes to get here, past all these houses. What gets me is look at the houses, they're all brightly lit, massive windows. This is a middle class scheme, neighbourhood watch area, right? It's a summer's evening, rush hour, everybody's returning home for their work. It's a Monday evening, so Luke has to take this
Where
path.
was Luke's house?
That's Luke Mitchell's home there. If you look, you can see the homes. The gardens are adjacent to each other. So one of his neighbours phones up and says the tart with the tight trousers and knee-high boots. Why would you call somebody that anyway? Him and his son were looking in the back bedroom into Corrie's sunbathing. And they phoned the police, I think, 2 days after the murder. And they say, oh, we smelt Corrie and Mitchell burning something. It would be a funny smell. So they do a whole forensic search of the garden, and they find nothing. Now, a Parka coat. The Parka coat is very important right now because the Parka coat, we got told that Mrs Mitchell burnt it in the garden, but they could find no trace of a Parka coat. They couldn't find any traces in a fire. There was no accelerant. It was a small garden fire for leaves, you know, for twigs. And the police had a search warrant for an address in Woodland for a young boy who went to school with Luke Mitchell, and he wore a green Parka coat. Now that's on the Parka coat, and they hid it for the defence. Only in the last few days we found that there was a green Parka coat taken under for a search warrant from the house in Woodland for a school friend of Luke Mitchell.
The green Parka coat was a key part of the prosecution's case against Luke Mitchell. An eyewitness sighting stated that a man was seen in the area during the time of Jodi's murder wearing a green Parka coat. The prosecution used this coat to argue that the man spotted was indeed Luke Mitchell. Having recreated the path Luke would have had to have taken on the way home from the woods, myself and Scott retrace our steps to the entrance of New Battle Abbey Terrace.
Luke would have had to have come down New Battle Road, right, and come in here. And if you look at the houses, Luke stays over there where the white flag, where the Scotland flag is and the white vans. But if you look at all the houses, they're all glass fronted, big windows. So they're asking me to believe that a boy has travelled from where Jodi is. He's had to at some stage cross this road, and he must come in this scheme. And as he comes in the scheme, covered in blood, he then has to get to the house over here without anybody seen him. Now Luke Mitchell was never seen going into the scheme. The only sightings of Luke Mitchell was seen sitting on this wall approximately. I say approximately because people argue with the times, approximately 6 o'clock. Right, just before 6 o'clock, he's positively ID'd twice sitting on this wall just before 6. But that gave Luke Mitchell approximately 50 minutes to get from East Houses along Rowan Dykes path, arguing with Jodi, coax her over the wall, beat her, fight, strip her, and then murder her, and then mutilate her, and then travel all the way down here, which is a 25-minute walk, and then get to that house walking past all these middle-class, semi-detached bungalows with big glass windows at the front without ever being seen. Do you think that's possible?
Only one way to find out. This is Rowan Dykes Path, a stone's throw from the Jones family home. This is allegedly where the chain of events leading to the murder began. So there was an identification of Luke and Jodi arguing on this path shortly before the murder, but you think there's holes in this theory?
Listen, if you look onto this main road,
right,
the white house is, you can see 300 yards up is where Jodi lives.
Right.
Jodi was last seen 100 yards away from here on East Houses Road, just approximately where that red car is now on a pavement, and she was being followed by a stocky man.
Right.
We, at the time, we didn't know who the stocky man was. And the identification is this Andrina Bryson, who claims that she's driving towards East Houses, and she hits this bend and she looks down here and she sees a man arguing with a girl.
Right.
They take Andrina Bryson mugshots, maybe 100 mugshots in a book of 13-year-old boys. And then they take her a Kodak Instamatic photograph of Luke Mitchell and ask her, is that the man you see? She says yes. She couldn't identify Jodi, although she knows the Jones family. And if you look at this road and we catch it, and we hope we will, and cars driving in that direction. And the reason I know she's driving in that direction, her statement states when she's driving, the sign for the path and the sign for the school is on her left-hand side, which means on the passenger side. So she's a driver of a car that just drove past us, and she's alleging that she can look into this path and see Luke Mitchell. I tell you that's just nonsense, it's just lies. I've driven that 100 times and you've seen it on camera. The person driving that car could not see me and you or identify me and you. I beg her to believe that, right? So and that's Andrina Bryson. So Andrina Bryson got Luke Mitchell here, I think just after 5 and he's seen at his home at New Battle just before 6. So roughly 50 minutes all in to be standing here arguing with his girlfriend, walking her, taking a 20-minute walk, beating her, killing her, butchering her, stripping her, then getting home to East Houses and making sure there's no forensic links, and then going out playing with his pals. I find that impossible.
No matter where Jodi was going or who she was with, this was the path she did.
Yes.
This was the last time Jodi was seen alive. So what did the police allege happened when Luke and Jodi went to enter this path?
The police are alleging that Jodi and Luke come onto this path and they're arguing about Luke Mitchell's new girlfriend.
Right.
And then they walk down here arguing, and further on we're going to come to what they call a break in the wall. But walking this path, there's several breaks from this wall. Right? Now, everybody says that they walked this path. My understanding is, I believe that anybody coming from Jodi's house to go to Luke's house would not have taken this path. They would have went over the open field. Right. And I'll show you why on the way back. Right. Anyway, the police are alleging that Jodi and Luke are on this path walking. And my idea is 2 men are coming straight up this path on a moped. They park a moped at the V in the wall that everybody knows. Right. But if they're on this path, how did they not see Jodi and Luke? You can virtually see the whole Rowan Dykes path. Aye. Now as you walk down here, if what the police are saying, Jodi and Luke's arguing, and Luke's wanting to get over that wall so he can hurt her. As you walk down here, you can go over this wall with several breaks before you get to the one where Jodi was found. Right.
So let's head to the V in the wall then.
Yes. So if Jodi and Luke are on this path, like the police are suggesting, and he wants to get her over that wall to hurt her into the woods, why do they not use this?
Right.
This is a well-trodden path. The breaks in the wall were used by locals to leave this path and go into the open field and into the woods. Now, I think the V in the wall, I think is fourth break in the wall. But if you're coming from the direction the moped boys come, it's the very first break. Right, that's the first chance they have to get over the wall. So I'm telling you, the two men on the moped, when they came up this path, to find something that was over that side of the wall.
The moped boy Scott refers to are two men who were reported to have been on this path driving a moped during the time of Jodi's murder, later identified as Jodi's cousin John Ferris and a man called Gordon Dickey. Both men were well known to the Jones family and close friends of Jodi's brother Joseph.
So with a moped you're going to see Luke and Jodi.
Aye, you're going to see somebody.
Aye, they never seen anyone. They did, but they never.
Say to the police?
Aye, they never seen anyone. Then when they leave, they come up this path. They go up there and along there, right? They still never seen anybody. So they've never seen Jodi and Luke. Right, here's the V in the wall.
The V in the wall was a crucial part of the prosecution's case. This is where they allege Luke coaxed Jodi over to the secluded part of the woodland in order to murder her and dispose of her body. In the search for Jodi, this was the point where Luke would follow his dog Mia to find what remained of his girlfriend. From this moment on, his life would never be the same. A tight fit, that, innit?
Well, the argument is a 14-year-old girl couldn't climb over here unless she was persuaded to come over or helped over. I've never had any difficulty climbing that. I've got a 14-year-old grandson that jumps over that. So if Jodi was on that path and climbed over there, she didn't have to be forced. That was the police motive. So he does the 19-metre walk. And comes in here. Like this. Okay, the first thing I must
When about the
Jodi Jones is lying here.
Here?
Here. Jodi lying here. She's naked. She's virtually decapitated. She's sliced across here. She's cut underneath the breast. Somebody tried to cut breast up. One side of her face is sliced. Real slice. There's a couple of small cuts to her eye. We believe that her glasses. And she's got a defensive wound on the back of her arm. It appears to have been when she's done this. And I'm using the actions because it nearly cuts her hand off. It never. Right, now, this here, there was no signs of any struggle. None. There was no pools of blood. The only blood here, and the only reason I know this is for crime scene photographs. The crime scene photographs were taken before they destroyed this crime scene, and I'll explain why. The only blood I've seen here, 500 millimetres from the ground, about this height, there's a line, a trickle of blood, and I mean a trickle, a line, and they tell you it's not arterial spray, in other words, there's no gush. Right. So how did blood get on the wall when Jodi's lying over there, but how did blood get here? It's impossible. Me personally, I think Jodi's been carried down here, and as the person's come round there, the head, her head being at height, that's the only explanation I can come up. If there was a struggle, Jodi's feet are covered. If there was a struggle, would be right.
I'd be a mess.
Yes, right. And Jodi's feet are covered in mud, and somebody's put her socks back on inside out.
Right.
So the outside of the socks are covered in mud when she's been dragged somewhere. And there's no drag marks here, none. There's no blood apart from the wall over there. Nothing here. Now the reason I know that is the photographer was taking photographs, but then the photographer takes Jodi. And the roll Jodi onto a piece of polythene. These two young trees were here, right? And this is an open space. So they roll Jodi onto a sheet of polythene, and they drag the polythene like this across a pine tree, right? Up to these branches. That felling tree wasn't here. Up to here, and so they could get a better photograph here, right? So they've trampled all over this. They've dragged Jodi along across here. So anything that's on the soil that's worth evidence has all been destroyed. She started cutting away the ivy, started cutting away trees, right? And they left Jodi here, right? So the pathologist then can't go over the wall. So Jodi's left lying there all night, lying on top of polythene.
So how may have that affected any DNA evidence in the body?
Listen, and this same site, when they bring the dogs back, they bring a dog team up weeks after. They bring up a team for Yorkshire. The same team who worked on the Madeleine McCann case, different dogs obviously, but the same team. And they say that they were hampered by a bleach-like substance. Me personally, I think it's ammonia. It's an old trick used by gamekeepers, poachers.
Right.
So if a dog comes in and sniffs and you've got something buried there, and I take ammonia on it and I put it in a big circle, whatever's buried there is what they call a protected site.
Right, I see.
Right, so when a dog comes in and sniffs the ground and it smells ammonia, it does that, they call it nosebleed, and it goes off in a different direction because, right, and that's what police dogs found 15 days after Jodi was found.
Scott highlighted many errors in the prosecution's version of events. He included inconsistencies in witness statements, forensics contaminating the crime scene, and also the short space of time in which they claim this murder was committed. So I asked Scott to tell me what he thinks happened.
So Jodi's last seen here, 100 yards, and Jodi Jones then walks along this path with being followed by the stalking man. One identification failed. The man that believed he'd seen the stalking man identified somebody who was not in the country. But then a second person seen Jodi Jones's funeral, and from funeral shots he picked out Jodi's brother, Joseph Jones. Joseph Jones is a stalking man, well known for carrying a rucksack, a backpack with a large bowie knife inside it. Medical records show on 10th of May 2003, Joseph was taken to the Roslyn Hospital after having what they called a violent episode. Psychiatrists, his medical reports say he was paranoid because he was smoking cannabis resin. He was psychotic and he was having violent outbursts. The one he had on May the 10th, 2003 was up at his grandmother's house as well as walking from here 2 miles. And he smashed up all the furniture in the house and he attacked Jodi. In 2013, the Scottish Criminal Case Review Commission elected Donald Finlay. And they asked Donald Finlay if you were aware that Joseph Jones was following his sister on the night of the murder, would you have incriminated him? Donald Finlay replies, hindsight's a wonderful thing and he couldn't do it. Although he had reservations about incriminating somebody for Jodi's family because the sympathy the jury would have for the Jones family and it might be bad practice. What Donald Finlay didn't know was about Joseph Jones' mental health history. He didn't know he'd been sectioned for attacking Jodi, he didn't know he had stabbed his mum. Didn't know 6 weeks before the murder, medication had been forced upon him. The maximum amount of antipsychotic drugs were being administered to Joseph Jones 5 weeks before Jodi was murdered. His medical reports also tell you, please don't send him back to his mother's home because his mother was psychotic. She encouraged him and she permitted him to smoke cannabis and she also allowed him not to take his medication. So when Jodi was murdered 5 weeks after he was released from hospital, Joseph Jones was the last man to see Jodi Jones alive. This is the top of Rowan Dyke path. That path here is Lady Path. This is Rowan Dyke path. This is where the police suggested that Luke Mitchell took Jodi on that night, coming from that direction. Me personally, I think Jodi Jones would not have taken Rowan Dyke path. I believe Jodi Jones would have come in here. She would have walked in here. Yes, now, if you look down here, you can walk directly to where Jodi was found. However, I believe this is the path that Jodi took. I believe that Jodi did not go down Rowan Dyke's path and climb over any V in the wall. Right. I'll tell you why. Anybody from East Houses coming and going towards Luke Mitchell's would come in this direction and go across this open field. Mm-hmm. You can see where the man and the dog is, right? That's where, just behind that man and the dog, there's a tool hire place that takes you on the New Battle Road and takes you into Luke. You can also follow this path here and it takes you down into the edge of the back end of the New Battle Abbey College and a golf course and you can walk along that field. Why would anybody with local knowledge walk away down Rowan Dyke path to climb over a V to go to Luke Mitchell? Mm-hmm. You don't have to use that path. Summer's night, listen, every time I've been here, this open field has always got people from East Houses in it walking their dogs. But I believe Jodi would have walked it if she was going towards Luke Mitchell. I believe Jodi Jones was killed somewhere in this field. Two men, well known now as the moped men, came up New Battle Road. They pushed the moped up here because it was breaking down, it was on the hill. They come here and then they went up this path, right? As you go up this path, you come to what they call the V in the wall. The V in the wall was the very first break. The moped is at the V in the wall when at the precise time Jodi was being killed. On the night that Jodi was found, approximately 6:45, a man was seen running down here, coming for the woods, jumping over the wall. He was described running like a bat out of hell, for no safety for himself. He ran across this bit, it's a busy road as you've seen, and he ran in front of a car and he was running in that direction. The two men that came up here was John Ferris and Gordon Dickey. But I don't think Gordon Dickey and John Ferris left on the moped. I think they left the V in the wall with the colour on the back of the moped, and the second man, John Ferris, now had to escape, and I believe John Ferris is the man who came over here and he went in that direction. John Ferris cuts his own hair, shaves his own hair because he doesn't want to be mistaken for the killer. Now how did he know what the killer looked like has always puzzled me. And he then didn't want to look like the stalking man. The stalking man, as we go further on, is Joseph Jones, Jodi's brother. So John Ferris cuts his own hair. He scraps the motorbike that night. He takes it to Melrose's scrapyard, which is a local scrapyard. Everyone in the village and the local area know that John Ferris scrapped the moped. He cut his own hair. His mum and his half-sister Yvonne Walker were burning clothes up in Stone Place in Mayfield on the night of the murder. Now we've only discovered in the last few days the police have they burnt clothes as productions, but they're never tested forensically. Right. We're hoping now to, if they've not been destroyed, we're hoping now to test the clothes forensically. The police at the time when they discovered clothes were being burnt, they told people they were in the wrong area. Right. So a place frequented by John Ferris, Joseph Jones, Yvonne Walker, a gang hut, a place where Jodi went quite frequently also. 30 yards from that house, clothes were being burnt, and the police says it was in the wrong area to be of interest. The police made a plea for the two men on the moped, please come forward, please come forward. And John Ferris tried to come forward, and then Jodi's grandmother, his grandmother, Alice Walker, told him not to come forward, and he told the police. Alice Walker's told me not to come forward. And after he told the police that, he was threatened and he had to leave Dalkeith. Right. He was threatened by Jodi's mum, and he was threatened by Alice Walker, his grandmother, that Jodi's brother Joseph was going to hurt him. So therefore, he left Dalkeith and he moved away to Ayrshire.
So see if it was John Ferris that came over that wall and sprinted across the road and went through that break another wall.
Yes.
Where might he have been going?
Come on, I'll show you. These derelict buildings now in 2003 were garages, garage workshops, spray painters, mechanics, 3 or 4 garages here. Now, in 2003, a large Bowie knife with blood was found in a skip just here. Now, as you drive up and down this road, you would never know the skip existed. You wouldn't know these garages existed unless you were familiar with these workings. Now, in these garages, John Ferris, Shane Mitchell and Joseph Jones were all familiar. Now, there's significance of these garages big time is this. The police in 2003 threatened these garages that they were going to close them down because people in these garages had special knowledge of the injuries in Jodi. 2003 there's a skip here, and it skips for all the scrap iron. Right? There's a spray shop, there's a mechanic shop here, there's a spray shop here. Now, the police came here and they threatened the people that own these garages to close the garages. Right. Because people within the garage, people who work here, have special knowledge of Jodi's injuries. Right? Now, days after it, men find a large Bowie knife in the skip. Now, if you look at it, nobody else knows that the skip can be here. You'd have to have knowledge of the skip. In this skip there's a large Bowie knife with a tip a couple of centimetres missing from the top of the knife. So they phone it in, the police arrive here and they come with white suits and they empty the skip looking for the tip, right? Then that knife just disappears. Right. Recently we found that they took swabs for that knife, but never tested it. Now, well, 2022, when I was writing a book, a man contacted me. I spoke to a man who told me about this knife, and then another man who allegedly found it was told that the knife was a cheap thing. Well, a throwaway knife that a mechanic had broke the tip off it. I went back to the mechanic who owned the workshop, and I said to him that knife was cheap. Someone had taken a window out of a car and broke it, and he told me, don't talk shite. I know good material, good tools when I seen it, and this knife that we found in 2003 was a real good knife, right? So we left it. I never put it in my book because I couldn't find corroboration. A 14-year-old boy who found the knife, they told him it was a cheap thing, and he just to forget. They picked him up from school without his parents, and they drove him home and told him, don't worry, the knife's just a cheap yellow handle thing, and I thought I've recently found that that's not true. Two things: a man came forward and went on tape that he was here with a mechanic when the knife was found, and says it was a big, large Bowie knife. So the police lied. They had a Bowie knife, they took swabs for it and never tested it. And people within this garage had special knowledge of Jodi's injuries. None of this was ever known to the defence. When Channel 5 asked two senior detectives, murder squad detectives, serious crime squad officers, to look at this crime, they came away with two suspects. Joseph Jones was number one suspect, and Mark Kane was number two. Everybody suspected Mark Kane because Mark Kane's history, he tortured animals, definitely in the area on that night. He was on New Battle Road, and where he got his scratches, nobody ever found out. He was never investigated. But over the years, I don't believe Mark Kane killed Jodi Jones. On the night that Jodi was found, Luke Mitchell come up walking up this path, and he met Alice Walker and the search party at the top of the path. And on the way back down here, can we walk down, show you? Luke Mitchell and his dog, he's telling his dog Mia, find Jodi. So they walk past the V in the wall, and they go down here, and they approximately 19 metres from the V. The dog, according to Jodi Jones, Stephen Kelly and Luke Mitchell, they all tell you the dog reacts and it puts its paws high on the wall, sniffing the air. Right. So Luke Mitchell then says that, okay, my dog's round about here. So then Mitchell turns round and goes back to the V, climbs over, and he goes down to the left with his torch to where his dog was indicating on the wall. Right. And that's how he finds Jodi. The thing is, Mitchell walked directly to the body. He knew where to come. But Luke had walked up this path. Now he wasn't searching for Jodi, or he had left his home at New Battle and come up here. He wasn't searching, and he wasn't telling his dog to go and find Jodi. He was on his way to meet Jodi's granny, who met at the top of the path that we're going to just go and see. And it was Jodi's granny Alice who insisted that they come back down this way. Right. But he had already walked up here, and obviously he wasn't searching, but he was on his way to meet, but he hadn't seen anything. But Alice Walker was adamant that they come back down here, this direction.
After Jodi was discovered, police arrived on the scene, and almost immediately suspicion was placed on Luke Mitchell. The detective who would go on to lead the case, Craig Dobie, was one of the first officers on the scene and would eventually be convinced that Luke was the killer. Scott claims Craig Dobie's judgment may have been clouded by his own personal relationship with Jodi's family.
The building site, which is now a building site, was the high school where everybody congregated after Jodi's body was found. So when Craig Dobie arrived here, everyone in the Jones family, you see how close Jodi's home is, 300 yards away. Nobody from Jodi's home left to go and search for Jodi. They waited on their grandmother, Alice Walker, an old woman, and then they waited, and Janine and her boyfriend Stephen Kelly coming from Mayfield. I've said 3 miles before online, that's not true, it's probably 2 miles. Right, as the crow flies, right, 2 miles. So I've had to walk 2 miles from Mayfield down here to go and search for Jodi. But Joseph Jones and Alan Ovens are 200 yards away, and they can't be bothered going looking for their sister. That's always puzzled me. The other thing that puzzled me is in the search party, when they found Jodi, as they're walking up here, Janine asked her boyfriend Stephen Kelly, was Jodi naked? That's also troubled me also. If you know your sister's died, she may have killed herself, she might have banged her head, anything. On the night after they find the body, the whole family, they congregate here. This is the school car park. When Craig Dobie arrived here, Jodi's auntie's here, Agnes. Agnes is driven to Pennycook, 3 miles away. She works with Craig Dobie in the children's panel. They're into safeguarding. They never safeguarded a child that night, I can assure you. And a police officer, the first on the scene, they come from Jodi's home and they've got in their notepads that she left with Luke. No to go and meet him, but left with him, right? Alice Walker cradled Jodi and they allowed her to go into Joseph's home. He took her to a police station, he started taking her clothes off her and photographing her and taking them for forensic. He started driving about for coffee. So Agnes, his pal, sister, they're all getting driven about and Luke Mitchell sitting over there and he's sitting on a pavement clapping his dog and he tells his mum on the phone, stop fucking phoning, I'll phone you, I'll let you know or whatever, and the policeman looks over and then they ask who's he. He's the person who found the body. So they didn't ask who else found the body. So now immediately CID have got Luke Mitchell left Jodi's home there. He's the one that found her. So take him in. They take him to the police station and they strip Luke Mitchell. They give him what they call the full works. They strip him. They take hair samples, scrapings from under his nails, which were all dirty. The hair was dirty, his wrists were dirty and his ankles were dirty. And they photograph him. No scratches, no forensic links. Right. By the end they start other people who have been over the wall, forensically tampered with, forensically interested at least. The police just allow them to go home and they wash their clothes 5 days later. Within 1 hour, Luke Mitchell was the one and only suspect in the Jodi Jones murder case. They take his phone and then they switch off and put it into a bag. The policeman then takes the phone back out, an old Nokia, and he opens the phone up and so he destroyed the phone in case there's any forensics in it, blood or whatever, right? He destroyed that. Then they take it into an unsecured position and they open up the phone and they destroy all his data. He's saying he sent text messages that could have cleared up, but the police destroyed on him. And then all the Jones family are here, and they've all got different phones. Janine owns a phone that Stephen Kelly uses, Kelly owns a phone that Joseph owns, John Ferris uses a phone that Janine's registered to, Jodi's mum owns a phone that Jodi uses, right? And nobody knows whose phones or what, and instead of taking the phones that night for the search party, what they do is they let them go home, and so they lost everything.
During the course of the trial, Scott makes some incredulous claims that Luke Mitchell's defence team had fallen short of the standard expected in a High Court case. We head to the Justin Lee's pub, where Scott reveals the actions of Luke's legal team during the trial.
Luke Mitchell's dog was a massive part of this trial, and Luke Mitchell's legal team, led by Donald Finlay, his girlfriend Jane Farquharson, Nigel Bowman solicitors and a solicitor called Jim Kelly. They arrive at the locus where I've just left. They have 10 working dogs with them. Labradors, Spaniels, Terriers, a dog man. The experiment was that we're going to see how the dogs would react, but they never brought nothing for the dogs to scent. So what they've done is they came up here and they went into Justin Lee's and went in for a jolly. No, my words. A solicitor contacted me, Jim Kelly, in 2010, and they explained to us the experiment was botched, and how it cost thousands of pounds. Jim Kelly's words to me were, I was like everyone else, Scott, I put my nose into the trough. This one experiment summed up Luke Mitchell's legal defence. Terrible. Many years later, 2010, I meet a man called Jock Pride. Jock Pride was a regimental sergeant major who specialised in training Alsatian dogs, and he had trained Luke Mitchell's dog. Right. And when I told him about the solicitors arriving at Newbat to carry out an experiment, but they hadn't brought a pig, and his words to me was, Mia was not trained to find pigs, Scott. She was trained to find humans. Jock Pride was never called as a witness. It astounded me, and I just think his legal team done nothing. Nigel Bowman, who was Luke Mitchell's lawyer, told some criminals that he represented then that Luke Mitchell was innocent and he was doing the best he could. And he would phone Corey Mitchell up at 11 at night when he was pissed and tell her how great a job he was doing for her boy and stuff, right? We would tell other people Luke Mitchell was duplicitous and he was guilty.
One of the biggest aspects in this case was the media attention it gained. Scott points the finger to two particular journalists whose involvement in this case was personal.
Jane Hamill was a reporter in Edinburgh at the time, and then she became a reporter for the Daily Record. She'd been vicious, lied, and I say that on camera, she's lied, she's smeared people and attacked people, anybody that ever tried to defend Mitchell. For all better words, she's a police spokesman, she's never been a journalist in her life. She wrote for the Daily Record, she's a reporter and very friendly with police. But the thing that got me, James Matthews for Sky done an interview with Luke Mitchell on the day that Jodi was buried, right? And how he ever got into her home and all that, right? Listen, you're talking about vulnerable people and the world media are against him, the world was against him, and Corey Mitchell stupidly opened the door and allowed him in. Now at the time when I watched it, and I watched it many times since, my opinion, James Matthews had been briefed, coached by the police. Because he asked Luke Mitchell questions only the police could ask Luke under caution. And then for a while I did the police go to him, but then it came to me. James Matthews' brother, David Matthews, is a policeman in Dalkeith, and openly telling everybody Luke Mitchell was a killer. Personally, Luke Mitchell didn't get a fair trial, he never got a good hearing, he never got a fair deal for the police. In my opinion, he didn't get a fair deal for his legal team, and he got butchered by the media. He got butchered. Listen, he was a devil worshipper, he was having sex with his mum. The Scottish media targeted Mitchell in a fashion like I've never witnessed. Everybody was all too close in this case. Jane Hamilton was introduced to the Jones family by Lothian Borders Police. Jane Hamilton is nothing more than a Lothian Borders Police spokesperson. Craig Dobie, when he arrived the night that Jodi was murdered, Craig Dobie was met with his friend Agnes. And there he should have, in my opinion, he should have stepped away. He worked on the children's panel with Agnes. She's a social worker, a trade unionist for social workers. She's on the children's panel for child safeguarding. Unless you're Luke Mitchell. Luke Mitchell never had any safeguarding, never had any child rights. Craig Dobie knew too many people in the Jones family. And he took them at their word on the very first night of murder, and therefore he targeted a wee boy, and then he couldn't take his eyes off that target thereafter. The Crown signed massive amounts of documents, productions and documents over to Police Scotland. Police Scotland have been destroying them. Listen, very sinister. Craig Dobie lied on the stand, he perjured himself. He told the court that there was no other search warrants in this case. The only search warrants ever issued were for Luke Mitchell's house, his mother's business and his father's house. That's lies. Craig Dobie told lies under oath. Craig Dobie got a warrant for an address in Woodland. You've heard of the burnt Parka. Luke Mitchell had a Parka, and Luke Mitchell says he didn't have a Parka. Luke Mitchell's friend from Woodland had a Parka, and the police got a warrant and seized that Parka and hid it for the defence. They've also got scrapings for underneath Jodi's fingernails. They're trying to destroy that. And then me personally, when I took Mark Kane to the police and I told him about two essays, an essay that Mark Kane had written about killing a woman in the woods, the police told the courts no such essay existed to smear me as a liar. The essays are in police custody. Not just one, but two, and the title was No Remorse. And it was a story about a junkie killing a woman in the woods, and the police hid them for the defence. They had Jodi Jones' psychology reports. Now, the first time in this whole case I ever knew that Jodi Jones had psychology reports was just the other day when I was privy to see police production lists. When Channel 5 aired the documentary, Murder in a Small Town, weeks after that, that's when the police went after that, all the production.
That's when it commenced?
Yes.
Do you think Luke Mitchell will ever get a retrial?
Yes. I believe what the police are trying to do now is destroy any evidence that we can prove Luke Mitchell is innocent. And by doing so, it will make them look incompetent, and they can get away with destroying evidence by saying, oh, we made a mistake. And making a mistake, then maybe get Luke out because you can take litigation against the Crown, and you see Article 6 has been breached, so he's not had a right to an appeal, so they may release him, but then they can release him, the police will still say he's guilty. It's impossible. Luke Mitchell did not kill Jodi Jones, and I think the police are trying their best to destroy whatever evidence that could prove that.
In my time spent with Scott, I've come to the realisation there is a lot more to this case than what meets the eye. So let's look at the facts here. We have allegations of police corruption, with suspicious media links. We have key witnesses repeatedly changing statements. We have possible suspects being ignored by investigators. We have the media playing judge, jury and executioner. We have the shortcomings of a legal representation. But most importantly, we have a 14-year-old girl savagely butchered just a stone's throw from her house. So the question remains, who's the real killer? I'll leave that for you to decide. But what I will say is that the murder of Jodi Jones is far from being solved. Was Luke Mitchell a cunning, calculated monster capable of demonic brutality? Or was he an innocent 14-year-old boy convicted of a murder he didn't commit? In whatever case, I hope true justice is a lot closer than what we think. I'm Hawaii 5-0, and this has been a long walk to justice.